Hi everyone, my name is Shadows of the Dark, and welcome to the channel. Scary things can happen at gas stations. They have high amounts of loitering, and most are open 24/7. A few redditors have given me permission to share their encounters. Special thanks goes out to all of them, and usernames will be in the description. Now let's take a trip to the gas station of horrors. This happened to me about 13 years ago. I was 16 at the time, now I'm 29, so this happened a fairly long time ago. Just some background info. I was again 16 when this happened. At the time I was nowhere near the healthy weight range for my age, and I'm still not. I have a history of eating disorders. I also had this weird tint to my skin that made me look dead, but my skin looked gray. I was also pretty short at the time, only 4'11", so I looked in no way physically imposing at the time. I had trouble opening up a gallon of milk. This happened when I went to a youth camp for my church at the time. There were about 20 kids in total, 10 boys, 10 girls, along with 3 youth leaders, 1 boy, 2 girls, so there weren't a lot of people with us. This particular year, I was going twice, once for the actual camp, then a second time to be on the worship team. The second time, I was with the 2 youth leaders, 1 boy, 1 girl, and another boy from my group. We always, without fail, went to the same gas station every single trip. It was a bit of an odd tradition, but before then, we had never had any trouble there. We would get there, be yelled at to hurry up, then just leave with our snacks and drinks. We get food, the youth leaders get a break. So without further ado, on with the story. This year I was really excited about camp. It was the last year my older sister would be attending. It would also be the last year my favorite youth leader would be attending. So just in general, everyone wanted to make this a really nice experience for everyone involved. We left early and got to the gas station earlier than usual as a result. That was great. No one was yelling at us for once. Normally one of the older girls or boys would bring a cooler full of drinks. This was because the camp drinks tasted like dog piss. So we decided it would be better to bring our own. This year my friend Sasha, not her actual name, was in charge of the drinks. She didn't actually have any ice though, so I went with her around to the back of the gas station to get a big bag of ice from one of those containers you would normally see. It was pretty dark back there and wedged behind another building. A bit of an odd place to be, so we were already anxious when we entered the little alley, if that's what you would call it. In the alley there was an older man smoking a joint, like marijuana. This was back when it wasn't legal in Illinois, so it was a bit of an odd sight to see, even more so for a church kid like me. He was wearing an old gray pale t-shirt and pants that were obviously meant to be shorts, but came down past his knees. Sasha grabbed the ice without looking at the guy and left as soon as she could. I went to follow her, but the guy grabbed onto my elbow and jerked me back into his chest. He smelled like smoke and rotten eggs, and if I hadn't gotten a bad feeling beforehand, I got one now. He whispered something into my ear which I didn't quite catch at first. Then he loosened his grip, so I tried to sort of jump out of his arms. Then he repeated the same phrase, "What a pretty girl you are," before letting me go completely. I was obviously a bit spooked, so I made a beeline for the van and got back to my seat. One of the youth leaders, we'll call her Anna, could see I was scared. She asked me what was wrong, but before I could get an answer, the guy came out from behind the gas station. He tried to engage in small talk with one of the younger girls, only in 6th grade, before turning to Finn, another one of the group leaders. Finn was obviously a bit confused after seeing the look on Anna's face, trying to get the girl away. Most of the older boys started gathering up the girls and getting them back into the van. Everyone knew this was serious. The guy ended up dropping back and Finn was actually about to call the police, but the guy technically didn't do anything, so there was no real reason to. So with no reason, he just got back into the van with the rest of us, and after doing roll call, we drove off. On the way back from the week-long camp, we stopped at the same gas station. What are the chances of running into the same guy twice? Or so we thought. I stayed in the van as I was still nervous. Finn gave me the keys and let me sit in the shotgun. I rolled down the window since it was boiling hot. As I was staring out the window, I saw the back of the guy's head looking into the window of the gas station. Of course, I didn't know it was him. I just watched the guy for a bit. Then he swung around and I saw his face. At the time, I was just scared. Everyone was inside the gas station, but there weren't any other cars around. I scooted down in my seat so that way he couldn't see my face. But I knew he would probably recognize the van and see the open window. He must have seen something because I heard movement outside the car window. Then after a moment or two of really heavy breathing, a foot or so away, he stuck his head inside and looked down. He gave this big toothy grin like we were playing some kind of twisted game of hide and go seek. He literally said, "Found you," and reached down and grabbed me and pulled me up. I ended up perching up on the windowsill with my head sticking awkwardly out of the car. He jammed his hand over my mouth and we just sort of tussled in that position for a moment. I brought up my hands, which he hadn't held down or anything, and started poking him in the eyes. It was a feeble defense, but it worked and that was all I needed. He dropped his hands and tried to get my hands off of his face, and I just started screaming. One of the boys happened to come out in that exact moment and ran across the short stretch between the gas station and where the van was parked. He wrapped his hands around the man's neck and almost jumped up onto his back. The man let go and forced the boy's hands off from around his neck, then started running back behind the gas station. Me and the boy just stood there for a moment, stunned and completely overwhelmed. I remembered I just started sobbing my eyes out, which I guess to some people was me overreacting, but I was still scared. Anna and Finn both came out next, to me sobbing and the poor boy trying to comfort me. After a moment's consideration, Finn called the police just in case, and Anna went to go get everybody else. With everyone safe in the van, the police arrived. Two of the officers went to go search the area, while the other one stayed with Finn and Anne to ask simple questions. They really couldn't do all that much, as I was in no use in answering any questions. We stayed there for another couple hours before the police let us leave. I'm not positive why we were there for so long, as there really wasn't anything they could do. We got back home without any other issues. Although I was still a bit shaken up, I went along with the others so I could still be in the worship team. Maybe I was being stupid, I'm not sure. On the way there, we didn't stop at that gas station. Understandably, we all didn't want to take the risk to go there again, so we stopped somewhere else. On the way back, we decided to brave it. We parked the car. Me and Finn went inside to go get snacks. Anne and the other boy decided to stay in the car. There were a couple other people around, but no sign of the men, so we felt safe. After paying, Finn went outside first, with me close behind. Before I could get out the door, he pushed me back inside. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. I asked him what's wrong, but he couldn't answer. The cashier gave us a funny look and glanced outside, then he looked back at us. All he said, "Is that your car?" with the same pale face. Finn just nodded. I managed to get a look outside, and I saw the man circling the car. He was banging on the front window, yelling and screaming. "I know she must be in there," among the fray. Anna was starting to cry, and the boy looked on the verge of tears as well. Some people see it as overreacting, but they were both terrified. The cashier led us both behind the counter and let us crouch down so the man wouldn't spot us. Finn dealt with the police while some of the people outside started getting closer. I saw a couple people with their phones out as well. For some reason they were filming, but I was too scared to get properly angry about it in the moment. The police arrived 20 minutes later. The man had quieted down and most people had left, or tried to. The man paled a bit and stepped back from the car. I remember a policeman sprang out of the car like a jack-in-the-box and tackled him to the ground. I didn't see much else as Finn had wedged himself between me and the wall. The cashier told us when it was safe to go out. A paramedic had arrived and a bit after that just to make sure everyone was okay and no one was hurt. Thankfully, we all got out safe. The man was arrested and taken back to the police station. Apparently, he had tried to do the same thing to another girl about 10 years prior. In the end, my parents forced me to get a restraining order just in case something happened. The man had turned up at a gas station since he had found out our youth group's Instagram. At the time, the band had the youth group's name on the side, and had tracked our progress to figure out what days we would be on the gas station. I'm still a bit shaken up about it, a bit more wary of strangers, even if I really shouldn't be at this point. Just be careful, folks. People can be scary sometimes. The world isn't a very nice place, and some people are just messed up. This happened about a month ago, and it still makes me feel super uncomfortable when I think about it. I, 17 female, was craving a sweet tea, so I decided to stop by a gas station to grab one. I live out in the suburbs, so it's a really safe community, and the gas station in question is about 5 minutes from my house. Because I was just going in and out, I was wearing a baggy sweatshirt, men's boxer briefs, slides, and of course my mask. My family can't afford a second car, so I was driving an old minivan. As I parked and walked up to the entrance, I noticed a man old enough to be my dad standing outside of the door of the gas station. I awkwardly nodded at him and smiled, even though he couldn't see that part of my face because of the mask, and went inside to grab my drink. He walked in right behind me. At this gas station, the register is right by the front doors, and the refrigerated drinks are in the back on the other side. He was leaning on the register counter while I was waiting in line to pay. Out of the blue, he looks me up and down and asks, "Do you have a boyfriend?" I do, so of course I said yep, but even if I didn't, my answer still would have been the same because I got bad vibes. He rolled his eyes and let out a disappointed sigh. After I paid and walked across the parking lot to my car, I got in and was ready to book it out of there. He followed me out of the gas station, and when I had gotten into my car and closed the door, he leaned up against the door so I couldn't drive away. I was freaked out. He started ranting about sometimes good people are in bad relationships, and how I needed to give him a chance, and how after leaving his baby mama, he was in a good position, and ready to be with a young woman again. When I again said no, he started going off about God and how it was intention for us to meet, and that we'd meet again. He gave me his number and finally moved, so I left as quickly as possible. I was mortified and disgusted. I was too shocked to tell him that I was a minor, but the sweatshirt I was wearing had the name of my high school on it. I could see him visibly checking me out. I don't know if it's worse that he knew or didn't know. Hell, 5 hours before this one, I had a guy a few years older than me follow me around a pet supply store, and I was able to brush it off. I'm sorry this was so long. I'm rambling, and I hate this kind of treatment is normalized. Rereading what I wrote may not sound extreme, but I felt disgusting after. It scared me. I can't tell my mom because she'd never let me go out by myself again. My boyfriend feels awful, and he's super considering and empathetic, but he's never gone through anything like that, so he can't relate. I just need to get this out of my head. Naturally, I'm a follower of horror and this subreddit and similar subreddits. I posted one on my Reddit a few months ago, so here's another one. When I was younger, every year for Christmas, I would drive upstate to my aunt's house, a long stretch of highway. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of this road. All I know is it runs nearby Akron at some point. However, most of the drive is through rural areas with little to no towns nearby. So it was dead of the night, and my groggy self had gotten off a long shift and had to drag my butt to my aunt's house since my extended family was expecting me the following morning. Near halfway through the drive, I realized I was low on gas, which irritated me. My brother told me he had filled it up the day before, so he either forgot or was straight lying. I saw the archaic looking sign for a gas station off the next road. It wasn't an official road sign, literally a pole with a slab of metal attached with gas off next exit or something like that. That seemed a little sketchy, but people do the same thing with fruit stands on highways, so whatever. I pulled off the next exit on some dilapidated country road through the dense woods. The whole thing was creepy and surreal. I kept expecting Leatherface to come running out of the trees with a chainsaw. Anyways, eventually I came to the gas station, realizing quickly it hadn't been open for years. It was all rusted, and the convenience store's roof was caving in. The gas pumps had all been taken out as well. I pulled over next to it, checked my gauge. I would probably only make it another half mile before running out of gas. So I called AAA and they said they sent a truck over. Now I played the waiting game. I left my engine on because the headlights were off and everything was pitch black, and my paranoid self wasn't sitting next to an abandoned gas station in the middle of the forest in complete darkness. So most of the wait went uneventful until I sensed some movement around the side of the old store, where my lights were pointed at. I looked up but didn't see anything more, so I looked back down at my phone. Then over the sounds of the night I hear someone yell, "Hey buddy, come over here," in a demanding tone. I looked up and I kid you not, there was a dude standing by the old store looking towards me, illuminated by my headlights. He looked like a run-of-the-mill homeless guy. I was honestly spooked and figured he must have been squatting there. Still watching him, I rolled down my window and yelled something like, "Yeah, what's up?" Still mentally crapping myself. I had my foot all ready to floor it out of there at the first sign of trouble.
You got any change?
Nah, I don't. Sorry, man. I looked up at him. He had this kind of vacant expression and is standing stiff. Then I see more movement. There are heads, about 20 or so heads, peeking around the trees beyond the man I'm talking to. I can't see them clearly at all, but there are definitely people. Literally just heads staring in my direction from around the trees. I see another guy beginning to walk from around the gas station. Then I turned and pulled around and sped off. I got as far away from that place as my tank could take me and updated AAA on my location. The driver came back over and filled me up. I didn't say anything, but after he left, I wanted to call the cops. So I called the nearest town sheriff department. They said they'd send a trooper over and I gave them a location. When I got to my aunt's house, they called me back saying whoever was there was gone, but they could tell a large number of people had been living there for a while. Blankets, canned food, the usual. The whole situation still freaks me out, but frankly, I consider myself lucky. I'll always have such a creepy story to tell. I'm just glad nothing happened. Yeah, and to the creepy dudes at the gas station, let's not meet. Thank you for listening to me today. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit rusty when it comes to reading the stories out loud. I know I stutter a lot and the sound quality isn't the best, but I'm hoping that it gets all better with the more stories I do. So I'm going to continue to do this, and hopefully you guys see my content improve the more stories that are out. Also, the owner of the last story is actually helping me out by featuring me on his channel. I'm going to be reading one of his stories here in a couple weeks, so be out on the listen for that and go check out his channel. I'll leave it in the description also. Other than that, thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys see me in the next video.